Hey, what's up, YouTube? What's good? How y'all doing, man? Look, I'm chilling again. It's another episode. We're gonna talk about like just I'm gonna tell you a little life story of me growing up and how I was raised and how like it's no book on parenting, man. It's like it's really messed up because of the fact like I didn't know what getting whooped, right, really meant, right, for discipline, right? And I know the word says, you spare the rod, you spoil the child, right? So me raising my kids, I try to make a different way of raising them. Like, so we didn't whoop, right? Now understand this, right? This is for educational purposes only. This is my opinion. This is my life experience. This is things I'm just talking about. So, like, hey, take it how you want to take it. But I'm just gonna give you a few scenarios on how I was raised and how I got disciplined in certain ways, and some of the stuff I was confused about. So now it kind of like dictated a little bit on how I grew up and how I raised my kids now, right? And I'm getting residual effects, right? I got some negative effects the way I was raised and how I was whooped, and I have some negative effects of not whooping kids. So I'm gonna try to navigate this as best as I can, as quickly as I can to make you understand. And I'm gonna tell you how I grew up first, and I'm gonna tell you how I raised some of my kids and how sometimes like where's that line? And people in the comments, man, look, if y'all have like better advice on like how to discipline kids, not necessarily like whooping all the time, but like to have it more structured. So when the discipline is laid out, right, it's clear to the child, it's clear to you, and it's not like, oh, well, this is going to hurt me more than you, and like people who say stuff like that, that's just ridiculous in my mind, right? But if you like my videos and you rocking with me, share, like and share, hit that notification bell to get more content like this. But this is this is what I have to do, right? I'm the youngest of six kids, the youngest of six kids, and what crazy about this is, right? My older siblings, right, would do crazy stuff. They would do dumb stuff, and then they would get their tail tore up, right? And then that would teach me not to do the same thing. But sometimes I will get whooped based on the fact they did something because they didn't want me as a younger child to repeat what they did. Now, in my brain as a kid, I'm like, bruh, that don't make no dang sense because I didn't even do it while I'm getting my tail whooped for whatever reason you're getting whooped for. So it's like, what's going on? So it's one scenario. One of my older brothers, right? So my dad had two rules. He had two rules when he left that house. It was one thing he never wanted his wife, my mom, to call his job for any like call his job about us because if she called, we would get our tail whooped if she called, right? Excuse me. If she called, right? And two, he had a garage. He had tools in his garage and you don't mess with his tools, right? There's two things we don't do. We don't mess with his tools, and and my mom is not calling him at his job. Those two things, right? So my mom, right? If we didn't act right, my mom would call my dad and tell that whoop these kids, right? Whoop these kids. So he'll come home and whoop everybody in the house, right? He had a soft. I had two sisters, right? I'm younger than six, so I had three brothers and two sisters, right? He was soft. He was a little soft on the girls, right? He had a soft heart for the girls, right? Like my older sister could kind of talk her way out of most whoopings or whatever. And my younger sister, he ain't really like I ain't never seen her really get whooped. I think I probably at one time that she had that maybe I witnessed her maybe getting whooped, but other than that, I ain't never seen her really get whooped. Right? You know what I'm saying? So like she could have been doing some stuff. She probably didn't do anything. I don't know. But you get whooped. I used to get my tail whooped just for being in the same vicinity as my brother. Sometimes my brothers would do something and then I get a whooping because they doing something, or I would do something and I get a whooping or whatever. Right? And my dad was a lecturer too, so he will whoop you. He would talk to you, and then he'll whoop you, or he'll whoop you, and then have this whole conversation about what you did, and then you be like, "Dang, I'd rather have the whoopers because the whoopers was quick. You know what I'm saying? Like, you feeling some pain, all right, but the pain comes to the side. my lecture is a 2 hour lecture. You trying to come at me, right? So one time, my brother, one of my oldest brothers, right, messed with my dad tools, right, and he didn't put it back before my dad got home from work. So my dad, I don't know what his brain was at, but he knew exactly how many tools he had, where they was at, stuff like that. So if something come up missing, he'd be like, "Oh, where's my stuff?" or whatever. And my brother took it or whatever, and then he was like, "Oh, whatever." And then he brought us all in the room, all the boys in the room, right? Because he had a little soft spot for the girls, so he brought all the boys in the room. Hey, whoever fess up, hey, boom, whatever, y'all, they gonna get their tail whipped. But nobody said that. So then we all get whooped because I was like, I ain't do nothing, right? But I wasn't gonna, tell on my brother. But I got to a point where I started telling on my brother because I was like, you ain't about to get me, right? So that's one scenario, right? And so it was like, but it was some things I did wrong, right? Deserve discipline, but sometimes I would get whooped for this, you know what I'm saying? Like for some my sibling was doing. So it kind of messed up my whole flow because I would get whooped for something my sibling did, I didn't really do. So my whole view of getting whooped and stuff like that kind of like jacked up my whole thing. Now my mom, in a way, right? She didn't really whoop us, right? You really had to like, cause she would either tell my dad, but if she whooped you, like it was extension cords, it was stuff like you would think like it was a be like back. That's what I'm saying. Like people, kids now, right? Call the police, call CPS and all the stuff like that right now. Because something my mom did, she'd probably be in jail. You know what I'm saying? Because of the stuff she did, right? She would cords, she'd get broomsticks, whatever she could grab shoes or whatever, and she'll whoop you with that or whatever the case may be. So it was kind of like, oh, I was like, man, like or whatever. But my mom was more of a yeller, right? She was she was more of a yeller. She was more like, hey, get it together. She was more of like not necessarily verbal abuse, but she would be like, oh, what are you doing? And like you should know, like she would just like correct you instead of kind of teach you certain things, like because you didn't know. Because I think one time, right? I'm just a kid, and my mom was like, "Oh, give me a rag, wet the rag, give me a rag," right? So I'm wet the rag, but I wet it with cold water, right? She went to hot water. She didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me that. So I bring her the rag. She's like, "What are you doing? You got this cold rag?" Da, da, da. Like she would slam off. Right? So I was just like, yo, right? You know what I'm saying? Or whatever, right? Or my mom, right? The remote would be literally at the table. She had a remote at the table, and she like hand me the remote, right? So I literally gotta walk in front of her to hand the remote. Like if she just linked up off a chair, you can hand the remote, right? But it was good things about my mom. I was just gonna say, my parents have whooped me my whole life. Like my mom was really, she was a good, great people person, generally for people, to people in general and stuff like that. And when you needed something, she would try to find a way, every possible way to get you something. Like if you needed shoes, like she would try to find a way to get you shoes. Now it might not be the Nikes that you wanted or whatever. You might be going to Payless. I don't know. Some of y'all here probably don't know what Payless is, but that was like the that was the knockoff shoe. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You Batman, you wear Batman shoes and light up shoes and stuff like that with no Nikes on. The Nike side was upside down, some weird shoes or whatever, right? And the sole was always like 3 times hard. But she would find a way to try to get you stuff and help you or whatever, stuff like that. And dad, on the other hand, was a calm, collected, or whatever. Like he'll talk, like talk about people in some ways, like not necessarily talk about people, but like he would say slide like slick stuff, like low key, but he was like calm and collected. But like his thing was being nice. Like he was always trusting and nice and sweet and kind to people in general. Like he was always those things, like open the door for the lady, whatever, like open the doors, served at church, serving people and helping people. Even if he didn't have it, he would give it, in certain situations, he would give people money and stuff like he didn't even have it or whatever. Because sometimes we would be struggling, we'd be hurting for money or whatever. But he'll find a way to give money to somebody else and be like, bro, you ain't even pay the bills in the house. I don't think, So I don't know. But as a kid, I don't know these things, right? So I'm depletely as a kid. I'm just out my mind. I don't know what's going on. another thing. So, you know, so they had great. My mom and dad had great attributes. You know, unfortunately, I lost my mom when I was a teenager. You know, late in the game when I was a teenager. You know, God rest her soul, stuff like that. Um, but when our relationship started to grow, you know, because I was getting a little older, I was getting older as a teenager, just, you know, 15, 16. You know, I started to kind of understand a little bit things, a little bit more about the dynamic and how my mom kind of worked, whatever, you know, I started to really see like the, you know, the nice, the loving, the caring side of her that I didn't really see, you know, I didn't notice, or maybe because, you know, I was just in my own world as a kid. And then she starts, you know, like, so then I started really being in tune with who she was. And then I realized how sweet she was deep inside. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, she might have yelled here and there, but I saw, you know, what her intentions really were. And, you know, I'm as a kid, like you just don't know what your parents go through. See, that's what people don't understand. Like you don't understand what your parents lived through and been through, right? Because, you know, like my grandfather on my mom's side, you know, I don't, you know, for all I know, you know, I have a step auntie, I believe. You know what I'm saying? Like I bet maybe one time or whatever, case we be. So he obviously, you know, he was with my grandma, you know, or whatever. I don't know what their situation was, right? And you know, my grandfather, I think, took money or something. Like it was just all these stories that I've heard from my older siblings, but I was so young. I was a younger person in the family, so I didn't really experience a lot of those things to deal with, right? And then my dad's side, like you just don't know how they was raised because my dad's side, like his father wasn't really in his life, right? So he only knew what he knew best. Like he only knew how to navigate what he knew how to navigate, right? And he was a boy's mom. Like he was a boy's mom. You know what I'm saying? Like so, and my grandmother was sweet. Like on my dad's side, she's the sweetest woman I ever knew. Like she was the nicest woman you could think of. Like she was just nice. You know, like she just had a calm spirit. You know, because when my kids were really young and I bring them around my grandmother, right? I mean, these kids would be screaming and hollering, doing all that stuff like that. Get to next to her, and it's like peaceful. So, like, you know, babies know. Like, baby, I was going through whatever I was going through, but you know, babies know. So my grandmother, you know, says, but I don't know this situation because my grandmother, you know, I didn't find out till later that she was adopted. So my dad's side, my grandma on my dad's side was adopted. So it was like I don't even know what her life and what she experienced with if she knew her, you know, biological parents, you know, long enough or whatever the case may be, right? So that's like generation of maybe some trauma, maybe some stuff like that, right? My dad grew up in Georgia, you know, during Jim Crow, right? Era, you know, stuff like that. Like my grandmother probably like when they had black codes and all this other stuff in the lineage, right? And they're dealing with, and they're living in Georgia, you know, right? With racism, with color sinks and all this stuff like that. So it's like now they're trying to navigate life, right? On the other side because they didn't start segregating a lot of things until the 60s, you know, late 60s, right? And then that's like the beginning of the process, right? Because even the high school I graduated from, right? Didn't really integrate the schools until like the early 70s, you know, really like then now it's like it's more a black population like 20 some years after I graduated high school, right? But you know that's a long time, you know, between the 70s. It's not a long time, you know, because the 70s have been maybe 3 or 4 black people within the school to now it's like 30-40%, you know, black or whatever the case may be, right? So I mean even my dynamics, you know, as far as where I live, right, it was pretty much like 90, like the neighborhood, because the area I lived in was like 90% black, you know, it was 90% black, right? And then I moved into a neighborhood that was literally next door city that was like 90% white. And I was like literally the one of the only black people pretty much that lived in the neighborhood, you know, so I dealt with a side of racism that I experienced, right? So back to like just, you know, parenting, right? So I had a misskewed view of discipline, right? Because on one hand, yeah, I was doing some things I probably just deserve to get a whooping to get corrected, right? But on the other hand, I got whoopings for stuff I didn't involve myself in. It's just because they didn't want me to take on traits or whatever, right? I know that now, but as a kid, I didn't know what that was. So then, now as a parent now, right, me and my spouse was like, hey, we're not really going to be whooping our kids. I think I probably whoop my kids maybe one of my child maybe like once, twice here and there, right? But for the majority of the time, we didn't whoop. Like, so that has a dynamic too, because when you don't whoop kids, like you really have to bring yourself down to their level and get them to understand from their level what they did to make a correction on what they did. And that is a process and a time to do that, because now they have to navigate a mind that's not fully developed to make sure that they are not doing what they're supposed to do. And then you have to apply the proper punishment for the action, right? For example, like my son was having issues in school, but he likes to play basketball, right? So our natural thing is to, okay, I take away basketball, that's gonna correct that in school, but that's not gonna correct anything in school. You have to navigate what needs to be done, adjustments that your child needs to make in school to be for that person's behavior to be in school. Because when somebody loves to do something, they're automatically gonna adapt to what they love to do. And it's never going to be an issue because they're going to do everything they possibly can because they don't want to lose what they love to do. School is not necessarily what they love to do, right? And then you're dealing with teachers, and then they're dealing with other kids and other students, stuff like that. So you got all these personalities in there messing with you. Then you have a teacher who probably has too many kids in the classroom trying to navigate all of those things too. So those dynamics. So it was hard. That's what made it hard, because it took years, to kind of get him right. Now he's thinking, oh, yeah, this involves it. So my teacher has 30 kids in her class, so I need to, put myself in a position not to be disruptive to the class, because it doesn't take much to disrupt the class. Because if one or two kids disrupt the class, it's the whole. So now he's thinking more in that thought process as he's getting older, right? So it's ways to discipline a child, not necessarily whooping them, right? But you have to be patient and navigate those things, right? And not tolerate the things and address things. The thing is, I think the main thing is when your kids act up or whatever the case may be, or they do something they're not supposed to be doing, teaching them, number one. Two, addressing it immediately, right? So if they're throwing a tantrum in the store, you have to address it immediately, right? And I'm not saying you gotta bop your head to the kid in the head in the store, right? But you need to address it immediately, because you need to understand, like, hey, this I'm gonna correct you right now, regardless of whether that we're in the store or not. Because I just think sometimes kids will be tired or whatever their thought process is, and then you take them out of the classroom, out of the out of the store, and then you not even getting what you need to do. You went to the store to get what you need to get. Now you can't get what you need to get because they acting up. And that was some navigation between me and myself was doing too, because they tantrum that I'm gonna just leave. I'm like, yo, we just need to get what we need to get done and not leave, because it doesn't make any sense, right? If they want to scream out on the floor, they just scream out on the floor. I'm gonna get what I need to get, because if I need to get groceries or food or something like that, now we in like a little department store or something like that, we could just roll out or whatever. Because whatever in the department store, you probably don't really need. But if I'm in a grocery store and they acting, I'm getting my groceries and I'm getting what I need. Yeah, but then when we get home, you go get the business. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have this conversation. Now we're gonna have a short conversation, because you can't let your kids, right? To you have a short conversation, because it can't be no more than 2 minutes. You have to figure out how to address the situation, tell them how it is, and do it so like that. And that's one bad habit, like not necessarily a bad habit. That's a habit I picked up from my dad. Is lecturing, right? So I'm trying to learn whatever. Sometimes I put a timer on. I put a timer on for like 2 minutes, right? And I'm like just making sure that I'm getting to the point. Let them know what's going on. This is the punishment. This is what we're gonna do, and boom, right? Addressing it, right, in a short period of time. Hopefully, making sure they understand what I'm saying, and then, driving it home. And only repeat, I'm not repeating myself more than twice. So it's like, hey, I do my best to get my child's attention, right? Make eye contact, say what I need to say, and maybe they like, oh, maybe they feel a certain way. They say, whatever, and I address it I said one more time to make sure. Did you hear what I said? Did you clear what I said? And they said, all right, you okay, right? But I said what I said, so you need to get what you need to get done. So I just think those things, whatever. But one thing we need to really put into context, just like my pastor be saying, I got three thoughts. I got three thoughts. So one thought is with discipline, it doesn't necessarily have to come from a belt, right? Your regardless of where it comes from, where the discipline comes from, you need to give your child discipline. No matter where it comes from, you need to give your child discipline and you need to address it immediately. Like don't let it linger. Literally, it shouldn't linger no more than an hour, maybe 2 hours. Like if you want to get your child to like give them space to kind of calm down and like clear their head so they can hear what you're saying. But it shouldn't linger no more than 2 hours. That's one, right? If you have a situation where you got to apply discipline, it shouldn't. It should be addressed within 2 hours of it happening, right? No more than 2 hours. And I feel it should be like addressed within an hour, but no more than 2 hours, depending like because you might have a child who's really like just they're mad and they're in this thing, and you can't read your child's mind, so they would just be acting up. So that's one thing, right? Address it within 2 hours. Two, right? After you address it, right, and correct it, right? Kids are going to make mistakes. They might even do the same thing over again. You have to address it like it's the first time. Okay? That's number two. You got to address it like it's the first time. Don't remind them, oh, you did this last week or 2 weeks ago. No, no. You addressed it 2 weeks ago. Right? Now, if they repeat themselves again, you address it like it's the first time. You just come, boom. Hey, this is what it is. You apply the correction or whatever. And you rinse and repeat, whatever. Because that's going to make consistency on your end as a parent to be consistent. Right? Number three. Number three is whatever. Do everything in love. Do it all because you can discipline your kids in love. You show your kids love. You always show them love and respect, right? When they're doing something good, you pat them on the back. You encourage them. When they do something bad or whatever you consider bad or not what they're supposed to be doing or whatever, you correct them in love. That means that hey, you did this. These are the consequences, right? And this was the result. It's the same thing. They do something good, right? This is the reward. Like, do you do something good, right? Sometimes it's just a feeling of that you did something good. Sometimes you receive something, right? So it's like, hey, you do something good, you receive a reward, right? It might just be a feeling. It might be something tangible. It might be something, oh, we go out to ice cream or we go grab some pizza or something like that. It might be those things, right? But we have to do all of those things from point one, two, and three in love. So, right? Number one, I'm going to say it again. Address the situation immediately. No more than 2 hours. After the situation happened, discipline or not, you address it. And you do the same thing when it's something positive. You address it. Like if it's something positive, oh, you did this good. You you encourage your kid. They do so well within 2 hours, right? Immediately within 2 hours. It works the same both sides. Discipline and giving a reward and showing encouragement and giving your child a pat on the back. Right? Two, right? The second thing is the fact that you have to love on them and show them respect. Right? You have to respect and love on them, right? You have to respect them. Make sure they have a clear understanding of what discipline is and what rewards are, and it's not intertangling, right? And we're addressing number one, what they did. Okay. So if they play a sport, don't take away their sport. Don't say, oh, you can't go to practice because you did this in class, right? Find things to help them in class, right? Find things to help them correct the situation within class. Maybe having a conference with the teacher, maybe having a talk with him, and maybe right, he got friends probably in the class. Maybe you talk to their parents, like, hey, have a conversation with the parents and the kids that they probably in the same classes. Say, hey, like, are you having the same issues? Because it might be the teacher, or it just might be your kids who just don't want to follow the rules. So you got to determine those things. And three, you have to correct everything. You have to be in love. So is this if it's a correcting, it's a reward. Everything is still in love and respect. Understand that if they do something wrong, there's consequence. They do something right, there's some type of reward. And it doesn't have to be mats. It doesn't have to be a watch and shoes. Like, it doesn't have to be anything material, right? It could just be like, oh, going out for a walk and just having a conversation. It could just be, whatever. And that's the same thing with discipline. Like, discipline doesn't have it always have to be a belt, right? You could be taking something away, like, hey, or you get an early bedtime, or whatever case may be, right? You could be doing those things all in the same thing, right? And then if they do something well, that's like I said before, it could be a walk, right? It could be a walk, cool. Or it could be ice cream, or like you go to the store, get them their favorite ice cream. You can go to, maybe you get them some something for whatever. Maybe you help them upstairs. Maybe you get a pizza. Maybe you do some other things, but it doesn't have to spend money, right? Maybe you take them if like my son like basketball. Hey, if it's nice inside, maybe you give him an extra 30, 40 minutes out there to play basketball, whatever the case may be. But it's addressed and it's identified. Hey, you did well. This is your reward, right? You did something wrong. This is the consequence, right? Both of those things that they work hand in hand. So if your child can have that consistency and understanding that if I do well, right, I'm gonna get some type of reward. If I do wrong, I'm gonna get a consequence. Because I think sometimes when kids are just doing what they're supposed to be doing, we don't reward them. We don't even compliment them, right? It's just like in class with a teacher, like the teacher is spending a lot of time with the kids that ain't doing what she's supposed to do. But you might have a C student who just calm and collected and not bothering nobody, right? And they say that's a good student, but they're barely passing, right? Not saying C students wrong, but I'm saying like they might be barely passing, right? Or they are getting bad grades, right? But they're good in class, and then they're like, oh, we need to help you with your grades or whatever, right? And then this makes it hard to say, like, my son is smart, right? So he's getting A's and B's, and he's getting A's and B's in class. So now it's like, okay, you get A's and B's in class. Now you're like, now you not acted, you acted up in class. You acted a fool in class, right? So if you like what I'm talking about, we just talking, we just talking or whatever. Because I think I even forgot my day. 3 points on the back end of this thing, man. Look, I know I was going somewhere with it. Like I had stuff written down. I was going somewhere, but I think I missed it somewhere. But anyway, I just want to tell y'all that parenting is consistency. Number one is consistency, is respect, and it's love. Like if you include all of those things together, I think you're gonna be a great parent. Kids do whatever, right? They're gonna act a fool, whatever. They're gonna do stuff that they're supposed to be doing. Their brain is not developed all the way, so they're just gonna act up. And you have to be okay, understand that they're gonna do stuff, right? They're not gonna put common sense together, right? You're an adult, so you lived, experienced life to know exactly what to do, like when to do it, stuff like that, right? So it's like, right, in your brain, like if you see some trash on the ground, you're gonna pick it up and put it in the trash can. Some of those probably still don't know that, but you know that, so you'll do that. When your kid steps over the trash, don't snap out on your kids. You say, hey, can you go ahead and pick that up, please put it in the trash, because you're just teaching them and reiterating them, like when it's something on the floor, pick it up, right? And sometimes you kind of tell them over and over and over and over again for them to understand what's going on. But with that said, right, if you like what I'm talking about, please share, like, ring that bell. Right, this is a teaching moment for me, right? Because I don't do everything right as a parent, right? I yell sometimes. Like sometimes I might, kids say crash out. I might even crash out, But this is helping me learn how to navigate parenting a little bit better, right? With my kids, my younger kids, and even my older kids who are legal adults now, you know. So like, share, hit that notification bell, rock with me, right? Follow, subscribe to my page. Subscribe to my page, I'll subscribe to your page. I write comments on my page. Like, let's help each other out, grow our pages. And y'all be good. Y'all be safe out here. Um, be blessed. And see y'all next week for the next one. All right. Peace.